Welcome everyone!
I'm Jennifer,
I'm Jessica, and you're listening to The Way, the Truth, and the Lies,
where we talk about our personal experiences with spirituality and faith.
Today, we want to share some stories about our personal experiences with YWAM, Youth with a Mission.
Originally, we had only one episode planned for this topic, but when we started talking, we realized how much we had to say. So we're splitting the episode into two parts. This is part 1. Why are we even doing an entire episode on YWAM? Well, YWAM is, in fact, a huge organization in the evangelical sphere, and so many Christian parents will send their kids there after they graduate high school. I don't know if this is an exaggeration in my mind, but I feel like 25% of the people I know who were kind of our age did a DTS at some point.
Yeah.
And everybody will know what you're talking about. Like, it's so rare that someone's like, YWAM? What's YWAM?
Yeah, and they even ask you so often, so did you do your DTS? When are you going to do one?
Yeah. It's huge. Very well known, very, very popular, well respected, I would say. Like, I know there will be some questioners in the background like, no, I don't think YWAM's that great, actually. But for the most part, I think they have a very good reputation in that sphere because so many evangelical believers go to study at YWAM. Many parts of their faith are actually influenced by YWAM teachings. So YWAM really has a huge influence on how the evangelical church works because so many go there when they're young and, young enough to be super influenced, malleable. That's basically why I wanted to talk about it, because it's such a big deal.
Exactly. But before we get into more detail, let's talk about what YWAM actually is and who founded it. So it was founded by the missionary Loren Cunningham in the year 1960. YWAM's mission statement that he came up with, or that was the main focus, is to know God and to make him known. YWAM wants to get the gospel into the 7 spheres of influence: family, religion, education, government, media, arts/entertainment, and business/economics. So that is the mission statement. Loren Cunningham wrote a book which is called Is It Really You, God? In it, he tells the story of how his vision of this missionary organization came to be. So here's a very short version of that. In 1956, Loren was in the Bahamas, where when he prayed, he saw a wave hitting the earth. A huge, enormous, and powerful wave. It flowed over every continent and reached everywhere, all around the globe. When he looked closer, it was not water, but thousands of young people preaching the word of God and the gospel to all the corners of the earth. So inspired by this vision, as he called it, and the calling he felt he had from God, he founded YWAM, Youth with a Mission. The first mission base was in Hawaii. And from there, they went on to any and almost every country to found more bases. Nowadays, you can find a YWAM base in 180 countries with over 1,100 bases in total worldwide. So this is really a huge organization. The biggest base with the most people living and attending YWAM studies today is Kona, Hawaii. So still that's like the center of YWAM. YWAM also has a university called University of the Nations, which includes various different programs, which Jenny will get into later.
So how does YWAM actually work? As aforementioned, YWAM's locations are called bases. And a base consists of the base leader, which is usually not a young person, at least in our experience.
Yeah.
It will be someone a little bit older, usually married with kids, someone with a little bit more experience. You'll also have a leadership team for the base, everyone having various responsibilities like welcoming guests and administration, things like that. And then you'll also have a leadership team for the DTS that's currently running. And there will usually be a different leadership team for each new DTS that's starting. Also because a lot of times when a new DTS comes, the next one is already on outreach and so they'll they'll always have usually a lecture phase at their base while another team is on outreach. Every single base should have at least one school running regularly called the DTS, the Discipleship Training School, which is really the basis for if you want to do anything in YWAM, if you want to be a leader, if you want to do missionary work with them, if you want to do a different school, you have to do a DTS first. That's why it's at every single base, because that's their base program. And so depending on the size of the base, the number of students and the number of DTSs or other schools vary a lot. Also important to mention is that a DTS will cost money, and this really depends on the location, like depending on the base. Some will try to make it very, very cheap and some won't, so I would estimate the prices ranging from $2,000 to $4,000 for the lecture phase. And then you will have an additional price for your outreach, which you will be informed of later, because usually when you start your DTS, you don't know where you will be doing your missionary work yet. And then after you've done a DTS, there are many possible follow-up schools that you can do, or you could become a leader, which how to become a leader I will talk about in just a bit. But there is, for example, a very popular school that many people also do after a DTS. It's called the SBS, the School of Biblical Studies, where they read the Bible, I think 5 times. They take it very, very literally too. So what you read is what happened. What you read is the Word of God. There's also a lot of artistic schools bringing the Holy Spirit into whatever, art and entertainment and music and this and that. You'll also have some sports focused schools or even politically focused schools. We talked about those 7 spheres of influence in the beginning. They try to have different schools for all of those different spheres of influence because that's their mission statement, right? And then a DTS, how that is structured, it's around 6 months in length. You will have 12 weeks of lecture phase at the base, and then you will have 8 to 10 weeks of outreach where you do missionary work. Most of the time it will be in a different country than the base, but not always. Then at the end, there are 2 weeks of debrief back at the base where every team comes together and you just talk about what happened, and then you will have your graduation. And one important rule that they really, really try to enforce is that there is a no dating rule. So even if you start to have feelings for someone else, you're not allowed to date.
Yeah.
Or you'd really have to hide it, but which is obviously also frowned upon.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously leaders can't date students and things like that.
It's a strict, let's all be clean and holy and celibate.
Yeah, but it's not even being clean and holy. It's use this time to focus on God.
Yeah.
Don't be distracted by romance, by falling in love with somebody, because, when you fall in love, it can really take over everything for you. So they know that. They want you to really focus on God. And also very important for them is that when we do outreaches, we don't start flirting with the people that we preach to.
Yeah.
That's really not what we're here for. We're not here to find a boyfriend in this other country or like a fling. Very important for them because we're supposed to be examples and not just hook up with people. And then how do you become a leader in YWAM? So I don't know if the rules have changed, but back when I did my DTS, it was a little bit easy.
A little bit?
To become a leader. Maybe a little bit too easy. Because all you had to do at the time is do a DTS. And then you had to do a 6-week leadership school. That leadership school is usually in Kona. And then you were done.
Ta-da!
And then you're a leader. And nobody will ask you after, do you have actual leadership skills? Are you mentally sane? You will have 19, 20-year-olds leading 18-year-olds. Any other company, you could never get a leadership position this easily. But
never.
There they make it very easy. And in fact, I have a little personal story here where I have been a YWAM leader for 1 day in my life.
Oh, wow.
Which I didn't even do that 6-week leadership program. I only did a DTS. And so close to where we lived in Germany, where we grew up, there is a YWAM base. My ex had done his DTS there, and then that's how I kind of knew the people there. And they asked me when I came back from France, because they were like, we don't have enough leaders. Are you interested in becoming a leader for our current DTS? Because I just had some time still between France and my next semester where I could have perfectly fit in being a YWAM leader for their lecture phase. So they didn't ask any questions about me. They just made me a leader instantly, like, oh yeah, that's great. You love Jesus. You did a DTS. Perfect.
All the requirements met.
Yeah, as I've mentioned before, after my time in France, I was a wreck. So depressed, I was feeling terrible. I had had such a horrible, horrible time there, and I wasn't stable at all. So I arrived there being like, oh, yay, I'm going to lead a DTS. And I very, very quickly realized, oh my gosh, I don't think I can do this, because my social anxiety went up by 1,000,000. I could barely talk to people. And then at night, I had to share my room with another girl, and she was snoring so loudly, I couldn't sleep like even for a second. And so in the middle of the night, I called my parents to come pick me up.
Mommy, get me out of here.
And I just called them the next day. I was like, I'm sorry. I overestimated my mental state. I'm not in a place to lead anybody right now. And I mean, I'm glad that I had enough reflection and like insight to realize that I don't have to force myself to do this, that I'm actually really not, like, I should not be leading anybody right now, and that I wasn't too proud to say no. But they would have totally let me lead.
Yep. Crazy.
And that's a little bit crazy to me, because I was not in a place to lead anyone.
So you saved a lot of people, including yourself, a lot of trouble, I think.
Oh, yeah.
By just making that wise decision.
Yeah, I just think I would have been a huge disappointment, you know? Because for the kids that wanted to, like, see me as somebody they can lean on.
You were like, please don't
I
lean on me.
wouldn't have been able to do that. Yeah.
Don't lean on me. But yeah, speaking of lecture phases, Jenny did her lecture phase in Los Angeles. Hers had 24 students with 10 leaders. I did mine in England, and we were only 14 students. So fairly small with 5 leaders, so a lot smaller. So we want to get a bit into our personal stories with that. But first of all, actually what happens in lecture phase. In lecture phase, one very important thing is that you have a one-on-one. So that is someone from the leadership team of your DTS who is your go-to person if you have an issue. If you're homesick, if you have anxieties, whatever, anything that's weighing on you, you have one person, it's a woman for the female students and a man for the male students, that you can go to. And you have one session every week, which is an hour, where you sit down with your one-on-one and you just talk. How are you doing? Do you need anything? Etc., etc. So that is a person who's semi-responsible for your well-being, your spiritual, mental, physical well-being. Then as a student, you also get assigned duties. So, for example, kitchen cleanup duty, bathroom cleanup duty, gardening, etc. Things around the base that need to be done and upkept, the students get assigned to. Each week also in the lecture phase has a different topic with different speakers that come and teach. And those topics can vary from DTS to DTS. And also, kind of no-brainer, you always go on church on Sunday, but that church is off base. Even though my base had a chapel on the base, we still had to go, and it was mandatory for my DTS, to connect with the community the base was close to. And Jenny's also had an outreach Friday, which meant that they would go into the community on Fridays to see where they could help do missionary work, etc.
Yeah, they called them tracks, and I was in the track for where we went to very poor people in like the ghettos and homeless people, but we also had a model track.
What?
Yeah, they went to the runways and stuff.
I would have wanted to go there.
Oh, everybody wanted to go there. They only took 5 people. I was so bummed out.
Oh. No, we didn't have that, but we did have, in the midst of our lecture phase, we had an outreach week where we went to a completely different city and met up with other currently running DTSs all in England. 3 running DTSs that met up in one city and started evangelizing like on the street to strangers. I will go into how that went in a bit. Also, a big part of DTS is that you have a lot of homework. You have a lot of homework, book reports.
Usually.
Yeah, usually. Jenny's, for whatever reason, didn't. But mine, we had so many book reports. We had to do mandatory journaling, and you have to read Lauren Cunningham's book, Is It Really You, God? And I had to do each week summary of the chapters that I read to prove that I had read them. And back then, ChatGPT didn't exist, kids. So I actually had to read that thing. Since we're already in our personal stories era, Jenny, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I went in the winter of 2014, and before my DTS started, the leadership team had prayed about our DTS and asked God, what's going to be the theme? What are things we should know? Just asked for leadership from God on our DTS and, prophecy and stuff like that. And they felt a huge topic that would keep coming up for us was the topic of spiritual warfare, which I would love to do an episode on spiritual warfare because for somebody who doesn't know what that is, I'm sure it's just like, what? What?
Who?
What are you doing?
What do you mean? Are you throwing prayers at each other? What's happening?
Yeah, exactly. We write little prayers on like paper and then we throw it on people's heads.
Exactly. You have been spiritually warfared.
The topic was also like a love revolution and da-da-da. It immediately started with a bang for me because we were in the chapel and they were telling us what they had prayed about. And then one of them was like, is there a Jenny here? I was like, yes. And okay, what I have to mention before this, while they were telling us what God had said and what God's going to do with our DTS, I was sitting there and I was freaking out because I was suddenly feeling like, oh my gosh, I came here because I really want to experience God. I want to get closer to Him. I want to be a changed person after. But what if I do this DTS? And I'm just the same person as before. And it's all for nothing. And I was freaking out and I was so anxious and I was already scared again, I wouldn't be enough for God and da-da-da.
Oh, baby.
And so then she was like, is there a Jenny here? I was like, yes. And then I was also very scared what she was going to say. I was like, oh no, she's going to tell everybody that I suck.
Oh, baby. But you don't
I was
suck.
very stable and secure and confident. And then she was like, so she had a vision about me of like a waterfall hitting me, and then it felt painful to me. Then I opened my mouth and I swallowed all the water. And she said, I can feel your anxious thoughts or something like that. But actually, God is going to use you and show His power through you, most of all of your entire DTS. Even when you're back in Germany.
Did she say back in Germany?
Yeah.
What?
I mean, they must have known. I think they knew who we were.
Oh, so it was just a bit more for show.
I mean, they read our applications and stuff. But so for me, it was like, oh my gosh, she knew I was anxious, and so this must be true. I felt relief in that moment because I was like, okay, so that means I don't have to worry about not experiencing God, because clearly He's saying, no, you will experience me, don't worry.
He's literally gonna drown you. Like what this woman described was drowning.
Yeah, I'm gonna drown you, don't you worry. I can't even imagine what that did to everybody else there.
Yeah.
Like, okay, cool.
Y'all can just go home. Jenny's gonna stay here alone.
Yeah.
You're obsolete.
I don't know. I mean, I would have been so jealous if it had been someone else.
Definitely.
I don't know how that affected people and their, like, how they saw me and stuff. I don't really know. I know some came up to me that were like, wow, that's so cool.
Are you the Jenny who's gonna drown?
But like what it did to me in the long run is put a lot of pressure, because if God wants to prove His power through me in an immensely big way, more than anybody else in my DTS, then that means I can't have just an ordinary life. I have to do something big. Right. Yeah. And so for a long time after my DTS, I was looking for that big thing that I need to do. And I wasn't very motivated by any of it, any of the ideas I had. But who cares? I have to find that thing. And I mean, now I live a very ordinary life and I'm fine with it. But it took me a long time to get here and to be like, it's fine. It's even nice to have an ordinary life. You don't have to be famous and whatnot and be the king of the world to be worth something. It took me really long to let that go. And I know that that prophecy had a huge influence on it. But, you know, now clearly it's just proof that this podcast is totally holy because God is clearly proving his power through what we're doing here.
For the blasphemous things we say.
More than of anybody of my DTS.
It's so funny you said yours started with a bang. Mine too, but in a different way. One of my leaders announced day one, like, after saying, hi, welcome to Britain, to all the Americans, it's trousers, not pants. The second thing he said was he hadn't heard God's voice in 6 years. And he wasn't sure of anything anymore. Basically, he doesn't really know what he's doing here. But he was seeing that God being silent as a challenge to him to whatever. I don't recall fully what he said, but I just remember being so shocked. Being like, 6 years. Oh my God, that's the worst thing in the world. Poor man. But between you and me, like, he was just checked out of the faith, actually, but unable to admit it. And he had a wife and kids, and his wife was like all like fired up for Jesus, you know, and he was like, well, I don't know what I'm doing here, but I guess I will lead these kids. So, yeah, that was my start.
Very motivating.
Yeah, I think he said it to tell us, like, even if God is silent, that doesn't mean you've lost your way and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the point he was making. But I remember when I had moments where God was silent, I was so afraid. I'm like, oh no, God's doing my ex-leader thing to me. Anytime God didn't say the thing I wanted him to say or whatever in my own prayers and stuff, or when I felt like he challenged me, I was like, oh no, am I going down my old leader's way? Will I have 6 years of silence now? I was so scared. So that was the big bang. How my lecture phase started. It was literally day one. He was like, hi, I haven't heard God's voice in 6 years. Have fun.
Yeah, but that's interesting because I didn't hear his speech, but I've heard people say things like that also. And it's scary to hear people say that because you're like, oh my God, I don't ever want that to happen to me.
Exactly. And then when anything seemed like it might happen, you got so scared. You were like, I don't want to be like this person.
Yeah, it gets scary. So in my DTS, after we had that whole speech of spiritual warfare is going to be a huge topic, I think that kind of turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy because we, from beginning on, had like a lot of focus on demons and a lot of fear around demon attacks. Like, I'm just like, what even was going on with us? But okay, we were constantly scared of like accidentally opening doors to the devil and and so in the first few weeks they encouraged us to get rid of things, objects that might be spiritually tainted. And I had a leather jacket, and on the inside of that leather jacket, there were skulls printed. And my roommate said that made her really uncomfortable.
Mind you, this leather jacket was very expensive.
Yeah, so I was encouraged to throw that jacket away. I didn't feel bad about that jacket, but they said it's maybe demonic because there's skulls on it. And so when I told my parents about it, my mom freaked out. She was so angry.
Understandably so.
She was like, you guys, this leather jacket was expensive. You give that back.
It was an expensive gift. Like, she wanted that for her birthday. What the heck?
And my leaders, and they were like, oh, sorry, we don't have it anymore. We immediately tossed it.
Threw it in the furnace.
And you could see that they felt really guilty because, yeah, come on. You can't do that.
No.
Because I was pushed.
Yeah.
I was manipulated into doing this. I didn't feel comfortable with it. But if I said no, that wasn't really an option. There's so much fear here around like demons all the time. And I was freaked out just as much as anybody else.
Yeah, but you should have asked mom first.
I couldn't in that moment. I couldn't be like, well, let me call my mom. They were there with the trash bag in hand. Like, put your jacket in there, you know?
Oh, Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
not cool.
A little bit later than that, because I know a lot of us were having nightmares and didn't feel good and stuff, and I really think they just amped up that fear so much of demonic things. And so also quite early on in my DTS, we had an exorcism of 2 participants, which, if you've never experienced an exorcism, be glad. It's one of the freakiest things that I've ever seen.
And it's not like in the movies, guys, either.
But it was creepy. I mean, what we were actually doing, we weren't planning on doing an exorcism. We were just praying because everybody felt so uncomfortable in our trailer. So we were all together, like all the girls and all the female leaders were in our trailer, and we were praying together to like banish evil spirits and stuff. And 2 girls started suddenly manifesting. One of them, it was so creepy. She just sat there looking at all of us with just this evil look in her face, and then she would like laugh like some evil witch. And
what the fuck is happening?
Yes. I mean, it's one of those experiences where I'm like, I can't explain that. I don't know how to explain that because it happened to 2 people at the same time. The other one, she was constantly like yelling, "No, it's too hot, it's too hot," saying stuff that didn't make a lot of sense. And it seemed she was really in pain, or something in her was in pain, or I don't know. And so we were all praying, like, "In the name of Jesus, get out, da 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 da." And eventually they both were chill, and the leaders took them away, and apparently they both couldn't remember what had happened, or barely remember, and one of them could speak in tongues afterwards. But it was a freaky experience. And also, we're all so young. I mean, the oldest person I think was 26 maybe, but most of us were between 18 and 22, or we even had a 17-year-old.
That's a baby.
You're not spiritually trained for any of that. It's freaky, and
Creepy.
It was scary. And after that, I still had a lot of nightmares.
Oh, poor baby.
And I had so many nightmares, actually, that I would wake up at night and I had this thing. Oh, what do you call that?
Sleep paralysis.
Oh, yeah, that's what it's called. Sleep paralysis is what I had. And I would wake up and I would feel like, a demon was sitting on me and I couldn't move.
Your sleep paralysis demon was like, "Not today, Jennifer."
And so I went to my one-on-one and I told her that this was happening. And actually, I had already had nightmares like that before my DTS. It's just they got way worse. And so she started praying for me. And so she started prophesying over me. And she saw, like, I don't remember like word for word, but she said, how much God loves me and taking me in his arms, and he's crying. And it was, I think, the most transcendent experience I have ever had in my life, where I truly, like, I could see it before my eyes and I could feel God's love so much that I was high for the rest of the day.
Oh.
It's a moment that actually truly changed me. I think I was a different person after, where before that, I had a lot more social anxiety than after. I still had social anxiety, but not to the point that I had it before. Feeling that amount of love, it really did truly change me.
Have you had them since?
With the sleep paralysis afterwards, I didn't have it for quite some time. So in the DTS, I didn't have it again at all. I only had it again later when I was in a very fearful place in my life, where I felt like not good enough for God and and things like that. And so that's when I had that again. I mean, for me, clearly, I know there's people who have sleep paralysis where it's more of a physical thing, I think. But for me, it was always very psychological.
Yeah.
It would only happen at a time where I was already freaked out by thinking that, demons had some sort of power over me, or I was opening doors to the devil or stuff like that. Because, I mean, since I'm no longer believing in all of that, I haven't had anything like that happen to me.
Go figure.
So, I really think it's always very psychological for me.
Your mind is a powerful tool.
Oh, yeah.
Wow, you had crazy stuff happen. We had nothing like that in our DTS. I just remember the first lecture that we had was the Die to Self lecture. So speaker came in and was like, "So welcome. Today we're gonna die to ourselves." And I was like, "What does that mean?" So they told us, in order to know what God wants for our life. And in order to fulfill that, we have to die to our own dreams, desires, hopes, everything that makes us us.
Insane.
We had to get rid of that, give everything to God, and He will give the things He wants from us or wants us to be back to us. So basically, lose your entire self, die to that, whatever that means. I still don't know what they meant. Give that to God, and He will tell you what your desires are and what to do with your life. And I remember back then I was like, yeah, and there is this Bible verse, delight yourself in the Lord and He will give you the desires of your heart. I think we talked about that verse before. That was also what it was based on, this lecture, but they took it like really literally. And I remember a few years ago, I found my DTS lecture notebook and I flipped through it and I opened the first page and I saw that and I was like, huh? And I was like, but what's left of me then? There's nothing left of me. If I die to myself and give everything, my desires, hopes, dreams, and wishes to God, what if He already gave them to me when I was born? I was very like, but there's nothing left of me then. I'm just empty. But basically, like, that's the point. So you can be filled up with this doctrine and with everything that they were going to tell us in lecture phase later. So you're more susceptible to what they're going to teach you later.
You're like a puppet.
Yeah, exactly. You're like an empty vessel. Which brings me to week 2, which I always call homophobia week.
Great.
Yeah, because there we had an ex-lesbian, apparently they exist, visit us and tell us all about what the symptoms of same-sex attraction look like and how to pray them away. And of course, this is all very much rooted in conversion therapy, which does not work, as proven by science. And in this week was also that whole confessions thing I talked about in last episode where I was totally truthful. And that week was also where they really, especially to us girls, because they separated the boys and the girls. And that ex-lesbian very much amped up, did like a home run on the whole purity culture thing, telling us how to have pure thoughts, because having same-sex attraction thoughts are like the worst and sinful, but also being attracted to any kind of man in a lustful way is sinful. So that homophobia week was also the purity culture week, because that was really instilled in us. Like, don't think about sex, don't masturbate, don't think about anything sexual. Keep your thoughts pure in order for God to work through you. I remember back then I was like, oh, okay. And so I prayed the prayers that she told us to pray anytime those thoughts came, and it worked. It actually did.
Really? Oh.
It worked.
Those things never worked for me.
They worked. Like, I mean, I was super, super serious. I had a purity ring for a long time. My faith was a lot of just believing everybody. Oh, this is your experience? Okay, well then I guess it must be true. And so I just followed suit and didn't, think twice about it. But now I'm like, oh, the shame. The shame that my other roommates had. For some reason, it came easy to me to keep to the whole purity thing. But other roommates, came up to me and were like, ugh. They just had a talk with their one-on-one, and their one-on-one did like a repentance prayer with them, and now they feel so bad and so guilty and so shameful because of those thoughts and feelings and whatever. For these young women who are like, our youngest was 17, right? For these young women, it's so toxic to tell them, be pure, otherwise you're trash.
I also think it's very strategic of the church
of course,
to do that with sex, to be like, you're not even allowed to think about it, because most people won't be able to do that. And so you can really control people so well with guilt.
So well.
When people feel guilty, when they feel like they're not measuring up, that is a great control method. It's so good. I mean, it worked on me super, super well.
Yep, same.
It worked on basically everybody.
Yeah, literally.
I talked about this super, super well. It always made you feel like you had to work harder, you had to prove more to God, you have to stay close to the church, to the faith, because you're always in danger of falling, and it's just so unnatural. I mean, that's just not how humans work.
Exactly. And they also instilled in this, like, sex is from God, so it has to be for God, and the whole thing that it belongs in marriage and what it has to look like and everything. I remember I had people in my DTS who've had sexual experiences before, and they did like an extra prayer for them, double repent, and now be pure from now on. Like all of these things.
Oh, did they also tell you about this thing that you can become, like in a spiritual sense, become a virgin again?
Oh, yeah.
I just love that so much.
Yeah. Oh my God, I just remembered. They also scared us into don't sleep around, because for women, when you sleep with a guy, you will have a soul bond.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't break that soul bond. So your soul will forever be connected with that man. A man doesn't have that, they told us.
Yeah, they told us the same stuff.
They told us only a woman has that, which is why you have to stay pure. And I remember I had one girl, she was always calling bullshit. She was like, I tell you now, I've had sex with multiple people and I don't even remember their names. It's like, this is not true. And I was like, but maybe you're just, too broke. And she's like, nope, this is crap.
Person's correct.
She also left the DTS later. She was so cool. She was like, Like, she would be silent in class, but she was my roommate. And after that, she would dish. That's crap, that's crap, that's crap.
Oh, that's great.
In hindsight, when you think about it, it's like it's scaring girls into being pure.
Not just girls, it's boys too.
Yeah.
I know they put so much pressure also on the boys.
Yeah. In the morning, men can wake up with an extra present. One of the guys told me that their speaker told them, like, when you have that, pray until that goes away.
Really?
They have to get on their knees and
Pray
pray
until
until it goes away.
Otherwise, it will not go away.
Yeah.
That's
the only way. Don't do anything with it.
Oh my God.
Great advice. Great advice.
Yeah. We also had I think they called it Sex and Relationship Week or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. That was the week we had a week too.
For me, it was actually my favorite week. I think we were raised in kind of a sex negative way. And so for me, in my mind, sex was only sinful and bad.
Yep.
And so our speaker, and I actually like that he did that, he said, well, God made everything and he also made sex, so it's not a bad thing. That for me was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. Of course, all the rest they told us about the purity stuff, and it was kind of the same thing. But our speaker was a very sensitive guy. Like, he wasn't being stern and dogmatic about it. He was being very empathetic about it. In that sense, I think it was a week that we all had kind of a positive experience with. But nevertheless, it's the same teachings that you get, but not just in YWAM, you get them at the church. And just the church makes such a big deal out of the topic of sexuality.
Yeah.
And it's such a great control method.
Totally.
Quick little shift in the topic. We were talking about how you have to have chores in your DTS. In my DTS, so while we didn't have any homework, we did have to read books, but nobody ever checked if we actually read them. We had these chores. And usually what I've heard from other DTSs is that they will rotate chores. So you don't always have the same one throughout the entire 3 months of lecture phase. But for us, they didn't rotate them. So we had some people who had bathroom duty and had to do chores 20 minutes per day. And then me, I was in the cooking group, and that was 2 hours per day, while other people had 20 minutes. And I know that, my DTS was very, very filled, of course. But also, after a while, it was stressing me out because I just didn't have enough time for me also.
Yeah.
I tend to be a psychosomatic person.
Really?
So I started having this arm pain, and so I couldn't continue.
You had tennis elbows.
And then I had something that also only took like 30 minutes per day. Then I was bored with the other people because we didn't have any homework. We didn't have anything to fill our days. And so we would just hang around in our trailer being like, oh my God, when's dinner time? Not knowing what to do with ourselves. It was just not organized in a way that anybody felt good. Some people were constantly bored. Some people had way too much to do. Also, something that happened with my particular DTS, we had a lot of people for some reason with various mental issues. Very, very traumatized people. Like, not everybody, but a lot of them had lived through horrific things in their lives. And so they were very broken and messed up to the point where 3 people were even kicked out. There were many people who, I include myself in that, honestly, even if I wasn't nearly as traumatized. But we were all looking for healing. And we got a DTS instead. It's a spiritual experience with a lot of weird doctrine where, yes, it can sort of be a support for you, but it's also giving you like new mental issues and not really teaching you how to actually overcome the things you're dealing with. And I could see that a lot of us should have just opted for therapy instead. But it's interesting because I can see that in many Christian circles, like therapy, it's a little bit frowned upon.
Yeah.
Because you're supposed to rely on Jesus.
Yeah, and especially if a therapist isn't Christian, they would never
Oh,
understand.
yes. Well, you can't get advice from a non-Christian. We're the ones teaching them, remember? Not the other way around. Jesus is supposed to solve all your problems, but he just doesn't. And so people just stay so messed up all their lives without any help sometimes, unless they finally wake up and they're like, oh, I need therapy.
It was interesting that you said you were bored. I was overworked and overscheduled. Our DTS, which I've heard was normal for a lot of other bases as well, we were overscheduled. We had no time for anything. We were never allowed to take any breaks or step back. I also did my DTS in autumn, winter. It was November in England when we came back from our 1-week outreach program. And that there was horrific in and of itself. We will get into that later. I think half my team had a cold or bronchitis or something, you know, like we were sick, and we always called it every Wednesday mandatory fun, which was just doing sports in a not heated old factory building, which was icy cold. You know, it was like maybe 3 degrees Celsius in there, and people weren't allowed to not take part. So half of the team would just sit an hour in that cold building watching the others play volleyball or do sports. And I asked my leader, I was like, hey, this girl over there needs to be in bed or see a doctor or a hospital. Why is she here? And then my leader was like, well, if I am lenient to one person, I have to be lenient to everyone. I was like, well, yeah. Well, then do that.
So weird.
Like, why wouldn't you look after these people?
Yeah.
Like, you have a duty to these people. You're the leader. You have to make sure everyone's okay. And if you don't let her rest, she will just make everyone else sick. And second of all, it will take her longer. I think she had a cough for the entire rest of the DTS because she wasn't allowed to rest properly for a week, which she would have needed, right? Speaking of people who are responsible for you and being overscheduled, we also had mandatory journaling. So we were given a book we had to journal in, and then that journal had to be given to our one-on-one to read. Huh?
Oh, that's so intrusive.
Huh? Excuse-moi? And I was like, I don't want to give you my book. And then my one-on-one was like, well, but you have to. I was like, I don't want to. And then she was like, well, just mark from where and where I can read what I can read. And so I wrote, Dear Diary, and then I put a post-it, do not read from here. And then I said, to here. And then I said, love, Jessie. So I marked my entire entry as do not read. So I gave her my journal. She gave it back. She's like, well, but you marked everything. I'm like, yeah, that's not okay. You're not allowed to do that. And I was like, well, okay, fine. I won't do that. So you know what I did next? I wrote in German. I wrote my entire entries in German. And then she's like, I don't understand German. I'm like, well, you know, that's just the language God communicates with me. So sucks to suck. Maybe practice speaking in tongues. Maybe German will come out at the other side. Like, that's not my problem. This was 2016, so back then, like, Google Translate and stuff didn't really exist or wasn't as good, so I don't know if she understood anything, and I didn't really write anything in there because I didn't have time to write in my own diary because I was so overworked and overscheduled that I didn't really write a lot in that journal. Anyways, but yeah, that was just a very weird thing that only my DTS did, that you had to give your personal, intimate journal to your one-on-one. I don't know why they did that.
I don't think it's just your DTS.
Really?
I've heard this from other...
Oh.
You had a normal DTS.
Oh.
I did not. Mine was way too relaxed.
Oh my goodness.
We had so much freedom in comparison to most DTSs.
Yeah, we were so overscheduled. For the first 6 weeks, I had toilet duty, which was fine. And I was paired up with this other boy, so he could go into the men's bathroom, I could go to the women's bathroom, and we could clean the stuff. But this boy, he thought I was his future wife. But not only me, but every other girl in our DTS. He had like every week it was a different girl. Oh, you're my future wife. And this factory building I was talking before also had bathrooms we had to clean. So I was alone in there with this guy where there was no Wi-Fi either. And I always felt very uncomfortable being around this person, and especially when he had circled through all the girls and came back to me about, you're my future wife. And I was like, what's this guy going to do to me? And so I approached my leader, the one that said he couldn't hear God. And I was like, hey, can you switch him off toilet duty with me, or like make our schedules different so he is not there with me in the factory building alone, because he's saying these very disturbing things to me. And I listed a couple of things I don't have to repeat now. And my leader was like, are you sure? I don't think he means that. Come on. Gaslighting me.
It's just so terrible.
So terrible. Like, again, not taking care of the person you're supposed to take care of. And then I told one of my roommates, and she was like, girl, he's told this to every girl. Let's go as a group. So we went as a group like an hour later, and she did the talking. She was like, dude, listen, this guy has been creeping out every single person in this building.
Mm-hmm.
He's telling this to all the girls, do something about it. And the next time we were rotated, I was switched. But also, he got wind, of course, of this and started to approach me saying, he singled me out, even though it was all of us who approached our leader. And he was like, what? Why are you doing this to me? I just want to talk to you. And I was like, I don't want to talk to you anymore. I'm scared of you. You're creeping me out. Leave me alone.
Mm-hmm.
And our base had a little forest on it, where I would go to pray and stuff. And so I would like say that to him, be like, please just leave me alone. Let's avoid each other, okay? He was like, okay, fine. And then I went into that forest to let off some steam, and he followed me into the forest. He would be like, hey, talk to me. I'm like, leave me alone. And I would start running. He would start running.
Oh, no.
And I was like, leave me alone.
Poor
and then I
baby.
screamed at him, leave me alone. And then he was like, okay, she's crazy.
Yeah, because you're the crazy one.
Yeah. And so
God.
I ran away, and then I got lost in those woods, which was great. I added that to tell my leaders, like, this guy literally followed me into the woods.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of lecture phase, he was kicked out. So they let all of that slide. I would have kicked him out the minute a girl told me I feel uncomfortable around this person. He's following me.
Yeah, it's just creepy.
It's very creepy behavior.
You weren't one person. Like, you all came up as a group and they just didn't do anything. Oh, I absolutely hate that story.
And they even reluctantly changed my shift. So the thing was, like, they were like, well, you still have 2 weeks of bathroom duty, and then we are going to that 1 week of outreach. So you have to stick it out. Can you do that? I'm like, no. Well, you have to, because we can't change it now. We will change it after.
They absolutely can't.
Yeah, they listened, but very reluctantly.
Your DTS really had a huge issue of taking care of you guys.
Yep.
I mean, that's something where my DTS really wasn't like that. When someone was sick, they were in a bed and people would bring them food and, maybe record even the lecture for them or something nice like that, and they were taken care of, and we would even go to hospitals for people when they were really feeling bad and stuff. I don't understand what was going on with you guys.
I don't know.
I mean,
either.
not you, but like your leaders. It's so weird.
Mm-hmm.
I have no comprehension for even like what theology is behind that.
I have no clue.
I don't even understand.
No.
It's just so irresponsible.
I feel like my one leader really had this, we have to treat everyone equally, and the other leader who didn't hear God's voice didn't care.
Well, treat everyone equally poorly, or
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
Maybe they were all like, see this as a challenge.
Oh my
blah
God,
blah.
yeah. That whole thing.
I'm like, see this lawsuit as a challenge.
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, another story from my DTS is how everything worked with our outreaches. Because, like I said, you don't know what outreaches they will offer before lecture phase, before you start your DTS. And because I had a pretty big DTS, we had 3 different outreach places to choose from. So they told us Kenya, Panama and Costa Rica and Brazil. And because I had always wanted to go to Brazil, I was like, I'm obviously going there. And so I said, God told me that because they wanted us to pray over where God wants us to go. And I said, Brazil. So I got onto the Brazil team. And because of bad organization and visa problems for the Americans, after a while, they were like, we're not going to Brazil.
Oopsie.
We're going to Ecuador. It was told to us in a way of like, look at this great news. God is going to move in this way and la 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 la. And, we were very much pressured into a toxic positivity of, don't take time to grieve this. Like, just immediately jump on board and be like, yay, Ecuador. And I wasn't able to do that. I just wasn't. I had so much been looking forward to Brazil. I had started learning Portuguese.
Yes, I remember that.
Because we had a girl from Brazil in our DTS and she was teaching me how to speak Portuguese. And I was bummed out, which is natural, I think, and okay, but it wasn't okay. They were trying to be okay with it. They were like, well, it's okay that you feel mad, but try to see the positive. And I was just so fed up that they wouldn't let me just be disappointed. And so we had that whole meeting and they were all like, try to see the positive, la 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 la. And then I came out of that meeting and a girl asked me, so what's happening now with your team? Where are you going? I was like, we're going to Ecuador. And she was like, well, that's great. And I'm really sorry for her because then I let all my frustration out to her. I was like, just leave me alone. Stomped off. Listen, I was 18. I was young. I was so upset, and later I apologized to her.
You're like, that's not great at all.
But I was like, no, not another person that's telling me how great it is that we're going to Ecuador. I didn't think it was great in that moment. But I mean, later I came around, and at this point, I just don't care if I was in Ecuador or Brazil, because it was a cool time, but a weird time, but a cool time.
Yeah, that's really funny. Like, I remember one of my leaders, my one-on-one actually didn't get to go where she wanted to go and had the same experience as you had because they were trying to toxic positive her.
Oh, yeah.
But she was upset for the end of time, I think.
Until the end of time.
It did work on her.
Because she was from the country.
She was from the country, but they wouldn't let her go there. She was like, that's dumb. Speaking of, or coming back to bad leadership and not being taken seriously, my DTS, our house that we were in, was the worst kept. The one needed most maintenance. And I kid you not, I slept beneath a mold for 3 months. There was mold on my ceiling above me, and we weren't allowed to dry our clothes in the rooms because of the mold, but it was already there anyways. And our food was not very nutritious, and also the schedule was so off. Like, we had dinner at 6 but went to bed at 11, and I was hungry, of course, at 8. And so some of us went to like Tesco, did some Tesco runs, right? And brought mostly sweets for us. And so I filled my stomach with sweets. And so because of that bad diet and not enough exercise and everything, I actually developed PCOS, which not a lot of people know what that is. It is a metabolism hormonal chronic illness that only women can develop because it has to do with the women hormone metabolism, everything of that. So with PCOS, what can happen is when you have too much insulin in your body, that over portion of insulin can cause inflammation in the joints, and that was what was happening to me. But I didn't get my diagnosis until 2 years after, but I developed this chronic illness in my DTS because of malnutrition and also stress that I will get into in a bit. My PCOS broke out, and it started that I couldn't walk because my ankles were swelling up and my knees were swelling up and I couldn't walk anymore. And I had to be driven around on a wheelchair and had to walk with crutches. And it took 2 weeks until they got me to see a doctor because my one-on-one thought I was faking. She thought I just didn't want to do my chores and I was just lazy, so she didn't take me seriously. And it even went so far as to they did not organize a taxi to help me get to the doctor. No, she came with me, but she made me walk on my crutches to the doctor, which took me 45 minutes.
Dang.
Because I was so slow, and both of my feet were swollen. And then when the doctor said, "What the heck is with you? Leave England, go to Germany immediately. We don't know what's wrong with you." She was like, "Oh, maybe she has an issue." And then she called a taxi. And then afterwards, she was like, "Why are you always asking the other girls to help you with a wheelchair and stuff? I can do this for you." I'm like, "I don't trust you with my body."
Yeah.
You didn't take me seriously at all. And it was also, again, my other leader, that weekend when we came back from the outreach is when the inflammation really was extremely bad on my body, and my entire body was inflamed. Like every single joint was inflamed, and all I could do was lay in bed. And my roommates brought me food. They helped me onto the bathroom. Like that's how bad it was. Like I couldn't move. And then, of course, I didn't go to church, and I didn't join the chapel, and I didn't join the activities. And then on Sunday, because we came back Friday, and I laid in bed until Monday morning. And then on Sunday, my leader, the one who was like, "I can't make exceptions," came into my room and said, "I'm disappointed in you. Why aren't you with us?" I'm like, "Girl, I literally can't move. I switched bunk beds. My roommate gave me her lower bunk because I can't even go up the bunk bed stairs. How would I walk to church?" And she was like, "Well, he can sit you in the wheelchair." I'm like, "I can't move. I can't move."
Yeah.
And she was like, "But I can't make exceptions.
Oh.
Why aren't you with us?"
Oh, it's just infuriating.
"I can't make exceptions." I'm like, "Do you want to wheel me into the mandatory fun factory? What's the point right now?" So that was that leader who didn't play favorites, psych, who actually did play favorites, which I found out to the very end of my DTS that she actually had a few people that she liked, and they were allowed to hang out at her apartment, and they played video games. She cooked separately for them. They had a Thanksgiving dinner with not all of the Americans, just with the ones that she liked. And that was the biggest hypocritical thing to me, that she really drilled down on me like, "We can't make exceptions for you, even though you're basically dying. But I will play favorites when it comes to the people I will allow into my apartment. You should not be a leader." That was like my last straw. When I found that out, I was like, "Excuse me?" It was so mean, because like most of our team were Americans, but like 2 or 3 people she didn't invite to her Thanksgiving dinner. She did a whole turkey.
Wow.
But she purposefully excluded some people. That's not okay.
Yeah, especially if she's like, "I don't want to play favorites."
Yeah,
Like,
I can't play
no.
favorites. My hands are tied. You have to come to mandatory fun time.
There's so many things I don't understand about your DTS.
Same.
You know, with mine, there were issues, especially on outreach, but I can sort of understand what happened. With yours, I'm just sometimes like, huh?
I'm still to this day, I'm like, why did I stay?
Yeah, that's what I've been wondering too. I don't know why we didn't all just say to you, "Come home, Jesse."
I think
You know?
Mom did. Mom did after my 1-week outreach program. She was like, "Come home." I'm like, "No, I want to finish this. I paid for this." They were like, "Fine." But I should have left the moment that one guy followed me into the woods.
No, but when you started feeling physically so ill, I mean, what happened is that I visited you instead
Yeah.
to see how you were doing, and you were doing a little bit better already. I carted you around with the wheelchair at that point, but man, oh man. I don't understand a lot about that time. Let's talk a little bit about how our lecture phases influenced us. My lecture phase, I have very positive memories of it. I really enjoyed my time. Like I said, they took a lot better care of us during our lecture phase than they did of you. I just enjoyed it. And I would say that the doctrine is something that just stayed with me over my entire Christian life. Everything that they taught us about, living 100% for God, because that's basically what the teaching is about. We haven't talked so much about what they taught us, but that's what it's about. Like every single week you'll have a different topic, and it's always about how to give this area of your life to God, how to give this area of your life to God, and this and this and this, and how to just let God be everything to you. I can see how that very much influenced how radical I became for a very long time.
Same here.
And how I couldn't see past anything. Like in German, we say, über den Tellerrand schauen. Like, look past the border of my plate. Doesn't make sense in English, but I really couldn't. It was like, I was just in the Christian bubble, and I do think my DTS had an immense impact on me. It wasn't like that before. I wasn't like that before.
Yeah, because it's like ground zero of a base training drilling program, right?
Yeah. I mean, I even came back afterwards and I talked to a friend from school because, you know, I did this pretty much right after high school. And it was a good friend of mine, and we met up, and he noticed the change in me. And he said, are you in a cult?
Yes. I mean,
And I was like, what? No, it's not a cult. It's not a cult.
Not at all.
But you're like, you're thinking like a cult member right now. And I was so like, no, he's misunderstanding everything. And how can he think that? And after that, we kind of lost contact, which I guess for him, it was like, you know, something's really wrong with her. Back then I was like, what? No. But now I'm like, he was right. Like, he really caught that immediately.
Yep, spot on.
How I had completely transformed after my DTS and was really thinking in a cultish way.
Yeah, same here. Exactly the same here. I do want to say one positive thing, or maybe two positive things. At the end of my lecture phase, they did this thing called original design prayer, where they have 3 strangers you've never talked to or met pray for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. They sit down just in front of you, know your name and nothing else, and they look at you. And then they ask God, what did you, when you created this person, what did you intend for this person to be? Who is this person in your eyes? 3 people did that. There was a man and 2 women. And that original design prayer, what they said to me, those things have stuck with me until this day, because they were very positive things, and it was extremely accurate things from these strangers that didn't know me, which I'm like, are these mentalists, you know? It was very, very beautiful stuff, beautiful wording. One of them said to me, like, God is saying to me, you will shine as brightly as the morning star. You'll be such a light in people's lives that at night you're the first star that they see. Which is also, of course, comes with a lot of pressure.
But it's also nice to hear.
But it's nice to hear. It's like, I'm a light. It did 2 things for me. It was like affirming a thing that I knew about myself, that I am a positive person and a positive influence on people's lives. But it also put a bit of pressure on me to always have to be the light. And I struggled a lot, and I still do in my friendships, to show people when I'm not in a good place, because I'm like, I have to be the light. I can't be negative right now. I can't be depressed in front of them. I have to be positive. I have to have a mask on. And so I'm still working on that, to reduce that mask and just be honest when I'm like, hey, I'm having a shit day. Sorry if I'm in a mood. That is a very hard thing for me to say to someone, even till this day. And it's like almost 10 years later now. But in and of itself, this original design prayer had a very positive effect on me. And what it also did is that all of them told me, you're a singer-songwriter. You are so talented with music. I see you on stage. All of them. I see a life of you on stage. And in DTS, I started songwriting. And to this day, I'm still songwriting. And I still use songwriting as a means to process my emotions and things that happen to me. So that's a very positive thing that I can take from my DTS, was I'm a singer-songwriter. Yay.
Yeah.
Follow my songwriting channel, people.
And this is an ad break.
Yeah, Jessie, Grace.
No, I mean, you're very good at it, and
Thanks.
it's giving you a lot. I mean, you don't have to have the pressure of being on stage just because they said it.
Nah.
But it's nice that it made you aware of a talent that you just have.
Yeah.
We've been talking for a while now, and there's still so much to say, so we will continue this topic in our next episode. Just a reminder, this podcast is not about trying to convince anyone of anything, but about sharing our experiences and maybe help others realize they are not alone with their faith struggles.
As aforementioned, next time we will continue sharing about our personal experiences with YWAM. Thank you for listening to us talk about our journeys and tuning into The Way, the Truth, and the Lies. Hosted by
Jennifer
and Jessica.
Hear you next time.